vibes, we rollin' from the west side to the east side. See my homie C-Style in the G-Rock. But not to my surprise, when I pulled up from the back, I knew we had a 22 with St. Ives and a fat sack. Yeah, the homie kept rolling.
Hey, what up, you guys? It's Danny B. You're watching the Trash Dash. In this video, I'm going to be ranking the Terrifier movies. So you got 4 Terrifier movies. You got the All Hallows Eve. You got Terrifier Part 1, Part 2, and then now the third one. And I've seen All Hallows Eve, but I'm going to, for this ranking, I'm going to be including just the Terrifier short film, the original one. It's in the movie All Hallows Eve, but I like it better as a standalone short film, so I'm going to just do that. All right, so coming up at number 4 is going to be Terrifier, the short film. If you wanted me to include All Hallows Eve, this would also be number 4. I just think it works better as a short film, so I just do it that way. Yeah, it's pretty decent. It's got a lot of stuff that made its way into the Terrifier full-length movie. You got a different guy playing Art the Clown. You got him, I think his name is Mike Miangelli, if I remember right. And he honestly, he does a pretty decent job. I would say he's not as like comical as David Howard Thornton's portrayal is, but he's a little bit more menacing. But it's also kind of like a slower Art the Clown. Like he's not as like David Howard Thornton's very like fast paced. This guy is like a lot slower, more like a Michael Myers kind of thing. I think the coolest part of the short film is Art the Clown coming out of the ground, almost like a zombie. When the final girl is, she thinks she finally escaped, and then he pops up out of the dirt. And the ending is very shocking. I won't ruin it if you haven't seen the short film, but yeah, it's pretty brutal. But yeah, as a short film, it's pretty good. Number 4, Terrifier, the short film. And coming up at number 3 is going to be Terrifier Part 1. I was always kind of like in the middle on this movie. Like I kind of liked some of it. I really liked the character of Art, but then the overall story, I thought it was like, it's okay. It's like nothing I haven't seen before. Just it's almost like P2, like people trying to get out of this warehouse. And my biggest criticism of this movie was the homeless lady, just because she didn't really look that homeless. Like she obviously went to like, you know, the hair salon, and she wasn't like all like raggedy looking or nothing. And just her acting, I didn't think was that great. But Art the Clown was pretty good in this. You got the famous hacksaw scene, which was really good. This one's definitely a lot more kind of like creepy, suspenseful than like the other two. This one's definitely grown on me a little bit more than the first time I saw it, but it's still kind of like, you know, it's number 3 for me. And I want to say it would make a good double feature with, there's a movie called Headless that's kind of like in the same vein as this one. And Headless, for some reason, doesn't get that much attention, but honestly, it's just as good as Terrifier. So that's number 3, Terrifier. Hey, coming up at number 2 is going to be Terrifier Part 3. And I definitely like this movie. I've seen it twice now. I liked it better the second time I watched it. I think I appreciated the pacing of it better the second time I watched it, and also just like some of the creepy stuff that I missed the first time. There's a scene in this that I don't hear talk that much about when I'm watching other people's reviews, and it's the scene with the security guard going into Vicky's you know, psych ward cell. And then just that whole way that plays out with like the headless body coming, and then she's giving birth and eating the other guard, and Art the Clown's head is on the ground. There's just so much like supernatural creepy shit that like if you walked into that, you would have the same reaction as Jericho had. Be like, what the fuck am I seeing? That's a pretty underrated scene. I haven't really heard that many people talk about that. This movie was very visceral, and you know, in Terrifier Part 2, there's the nightmare sequence, and I feel that this is kind of like a response to like the metaphor that the nightmare sequence was trying to make, in my opinion. So I have a theory that the nightmare sequence in Part 2 is basically, you know, all these people lining up for fast food, like they're expecting, you know, like a mainstream horror movie. And, you know, Art the Clown has that appeal because he's kind of like a mainstream looking character like Michael Myers or, you know, one of those. So he's singing around, dancing and shit. And then they're all eating it up, and then he pulls out the Tommy gun and goes fucking, you know, just crazy, massacring everyone. So I almost feel like that's like a metaphor for the franchise. Like if you're here to expect some fast food, you know, PG-13 horror, or even just like watered down R-rated horror, you're not gonna get that. You're gonna get a fucking Tommy gun in the face. So to me, that's like part 3 is that. He's fucking axing up the kids. He's fucking desecrating the Christmas holiday. Basically trying to make it as X-rated as possible. And then even eliminating the fun factor that was kind of in part 2 to where you're just like fucking angry at Art the Clown. It is a little lackluster on the story. It's mostly like kill scene after kill scene. And, but you know, this would be a fun one to throw on when you're just want to pick out like a, you know, almost like a Halloween Kills where there's nothing really going on in that story. It's just Michael Myers running around killing people. So it's almost kind of like that where it's like, all right, this will be a good hour and or 2 hours to kill. So that's number 2, Terrifier Part 3. And coming up at number 1 is going to be Terrifier Part 2. This is the one that made me really a Terrifier fan because I liked the character in Part 1, but I was kind of like in the middle on that movie. And I just knew they were going to make this one better. And then, yeah, it was even way better than I thought. Probably seen it like, you know, like 15 times now or something. I throw it on like all the time. My favorite sequence in the whole movie is the nightmare scene. I love that whole sequence. Then you got like the bedroom kill and then even just the non-violent shit. Like when he's just clowning around in the Halloween store trying on sunglasses and stuff. That's really fun. And just even like the scene where he's like washing his clothes and shit is pretty cool. And you know, there's not that many horror movies that are actually set on Halloween. There's actually a lot more, in my opinion, that are set on Christmas. They really kind of got the Halloween atmosphere right in this. Like, this is a really good one to throw on Halloween. I like the way this movie is color corrected. You got like the blue and orange hues everywhere. It's definitely not as creepy and suspenseful as the first one, but I like the comic booky kind of supernatural vibe this one had. My only criticism of this movie is I feel like the final act, like the battle between the sister and Art the Clown, goes on a little bit too long. Whereas it almost gets a little bit repetitive and you're just kind of like, all right, can you hurry this up a little bit? But other than that, I really love the movie. Also, it was just so much fun to see this movie kind of like shatter the box office records and expectations that everyone had. Because the way they did this was so cool where they like kind of like drove it around like an old school drive-in movie and played it at like random theaters. And then you got all the people in the news like throwing up and everything. And you're just like word of mouth, like, all right, I got to see this thing. 2022 was a weird time too because movies were coming out on streaming and the movie theater at the same day. And this one decided that like, no, we're just going to put it in the theaters for a little bit, see how it does. And I kind of feel like that maybe is why movies are going exclusively to theaters again instead of rolling out same day, you know, streaming and movie theater thing. There's also, I think, some kind of lawsuit that Scarlett Johansson had or something. So that's my number 1, Terrifier Part 2. If I watch Part 3 a few more times, maybe it'll slide into the first spot. But for right now, Terrifier Part 2 is my favorite one. Hey guys, that's going to do it. Let me know how you would rank these movies. Let me know if you're excited for Part 4. This is Danny B. You're watching The Trash Dash. Hit the like button, comment, and subscribe. Peace out.